The Life Esidimeni lives are being remembered with a photographic exhibition. Portraits of people who died due to the Life Esidimeni tragedy have been put together to honor them. For more on this, we're joined by Christine Nxumalo, the Life Esidimeni Family Committee representative. Very good evening to you, Christine. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, looking back and just remembering the many sessions that were spoken to when it comes to the back and forth, the questions around what happened, how did it happen, who was held accountable. And one thinks of the families who had to endure this, losing 144 mental ill patients, family members, loved ones, at the hands of those who are meant to protect them. You have decided to remember them in photographs. Talk to us about it.
Good evening, and thanks for having me. I suppose this is our way of saying the tragedy happened, and we must never forget about it. And to talk about it on a regular basis. These are portraits of families telling their stories, you know, so that we understand, because very often you listen to the story as a whole and not actually linking it to the families. So the concept of these portraits is basically tell us from a family point of view what happened, how did this affect you, and how it impacted in your lives. And to date, people are still suffering. We're still having families struggling to tell their stories. You know, so the few that you see there is a few that, you know, that can now talk about the story. Some still struggle till today to talk about what happened.
And in collating the photographs, have you managed to gather all 144? What processes have you followed, and what has it taken to put it all together?
To be honest with you, we are still far from the 144. Like I was just saying a few minutes ago, that to get the families to commit to actually doing this, telling the story, in itself is a process, because some of them will tell you about you taking us back. Some of us will say, you know what, we buried our loved one, we found peace. So it's very difficult to get all of them to tell their stories. These are the few that actually came forward and said, I want to talk about it. You know, this is their way of getting justice for their loved ones. But we understand why the others don't want to, you know, open the wounds.
So in gathering the photos that you have gathered so far, what kind of photos did you find? Were you looking at photos of, you know, family members as well, or just those who had lost their lives and how they had related to their family and their loved ones?
Yeah, the idea was that the concept is basically to get the bereaved families to tell their stories. And have, you know, in them telling their story, have a picture of their loved one. So what you will find is a portrait of the loved one, either holding the picture or whatever memory they have of the loved one in the portrait. So, and then also the story of, you know, what happened, how did they find out about their loved one's death, etc. So it's a little portrait with the loved one and the mental health user who died, with the story of what happened in that time.
You say that the other family members who weren't keen on being a part of this say that the photographs open a door to the past. What does it represent to you as someone who's also lost a family member?
Look, the way I relate to my story is that I'm using my story to help others. Whereas maybe the next family member might feel that this is a personal thing. It's their story. You know, they dealing with it in the way that they deal with it. So we can't be harsh and say to the other family ones, no, help us tell your story. Whoever is willing to tell their story, we are willing to listen to them.
And in terms of symbolizing mental health and putting it under the spotlight, how does this series of photographs assist in educating?
Well, we're hoping that the tragedy in itself is not forgotten in doing these stories and these exhibitions. so that people don't think that Life Esidimeni happened, families were paid, so they must get over it. We are hoping that the Life Esidimeni process will open up the gates to the policy process, because where we are stuck is policy being actually brought to life. So we're hoping that the story will remind people what happened when, when government didn't allow policy for policy to actually come alive. And that's what we're hoping this story will remind them, that if we don't do the right thing, these are the consequences of not doing things right.
Yeah. So where will this exhibition be held? Has it been held already?
No. It's going to open tomorrow at the Constitution Hill. There's a human rights festival happening. So Constitution Hill is going to be a buzz with activity. So there's a section that's allocated to different types of exhibition, and one of us our one is going to be amongst the others. In a section called the Gandhi Mandela Square, number 5, that's where the exhibition will be.
Yeah. Very well. Thank you so much. Thanks for telling us about that. Christine Nxumalo, the Life Esidimeni Family Committee member.